Welcome to our channel. Today we're diving into the incredible world of maritime adventures and disasters. We've gathered the most fascinating and shocking incidents involving ships that have occurred in recent years. From astonishing accidents to incredible rescue operations, we'll witness how massive vessels face unexpected obstacles, how unforeseen technical failures can lead to large-scale consequences, and the surprising and amusing situations that can catch tourists off guard while on vacation. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel so you don't miss any videos, and give us a thumbs up. Now, let's dive in. This incident took place in July 2019 at a port in Indonesia. The container ship Fortune Soul arrived from Malaysia, but something went wrong, and the ship collided with the dock. This took many workers by surprise, as they were nearby and witnessed the event. Some even started filming the ship, noticing that something was amiss. The impact caused one of the giant crane supports to fail, and within seconds it collapsed. This led to debris flying in all directions, and a massive cloud of dust rose into the air. Due to this incident, one dock worker was hospitalized with injuries, but fortunately, no one was killed. The container ship Fortune Soul itself did not sustain significant damage, nor did the cargo it was delivering. However, the port suffered severe destruction. As a result, it had to be closed for several months to dismantle the structure and address the aftermath. Near the village of Ballycott in Ireland lies a real ghost ship that has become a local legend and tourist attraction. This vessel was crossing the Atlantic Ocean in 2018 when technical problems caused its engines to fail. The incident occurred near the Bermuda Triangle, adding a touch of mystique to its story. All crew members were rescued, but the ship had to be abandoned. For 2 years, the ship disappeared without a trace until it washed ashore on rocks near Ireland in 2020. During this time, the vessel turned into a complete wreck, its hull covered in rust and eventually splitting in two. A fire also broke out, burning out the interior and further worsening its condition. It is currently impossible to dismantle the ship due to its legal status and high cost of the operation. Local authorities decided to leave it on the shore, where it continues to be gradually destroyed by the elements. However, the site quickly became popular among tourists and locals. The ghost ship has become the subject of numerous legends and stories. Enthusiasts venture into its remains to experience the atmosphere of abandonment and danger. They can walk across the shattered deck, descend into the hold, and explore what remains of the technical rooms, the control panel, and crew cabins. Although many items have been taken as souvenirs or scrap metal, there are still many interesting things to be found inside. Would you like to explore this ship? Let us know down in the comments below. During a sailboat race and show in Southampton, England in 2011, a dramatic accident that frightened thousands of spectators watching the water show occurred. As the sailboats were demonstrating their skills, a massive supertanker entered the port. One of the sailboats, caught up in the competition, misjudged the speed of the approaching supertanker. The crew didn't have time to maneuver away to a safe distance. The sailboat narrowly avoided a direct collision with the supertanker's bow, and it seemed that the danger had passed. However, as the ships almost cleared each other, the sailboat's sail got caught on the supertanker's anchor. This unexpected contact tore the sail and nearly capsized the boat, which had several crew members on board. Several motorboats quickly came to assist, promptly securing the sailboat and helping to stabilize the situation. Luckily, there were no casualties or serious injuries. However, the sailboat sustained significant damage, requiring immediate repairs. This ship was sunk off the coast of Florida to create an artificial reef. The sinking process was carefully planned. However, during the preparations, the ship began to list to the port side. Tons of seawater rushed into the hold, filling it at an incredible speed. A deck camera captured the moment the ship capsized, slowly sinking into the water before finally disappearing beneath the waves. Now, the ship rests at a depth of 33 meters, where it has transformed into an artificial reef. This is what can happen when safety rules are ignored and equipment is not thoroughly checked before transporting boats. This brand new 15-meter yacht worth several $100,000 was being lifted using cables. However, something went wrong. The yacht began to sway, and the front cable couldn't bear the load, snapping under the pressure. The luxurious lot broke loose and struck the side of the cargo ship. The shocking moment when the yacht capsized and fell into the water, partially sinking, left the dock workers speechless in shock and dismay. Now, instead of a flawless vessel, they were faced with a damaged yacht requiring extensive repairs and costs to restore. This incident underscores the importance of adhering to all safety standards and checks to avoid such occurrences. Here's how farmers transport hundreds of buffaloes by sea. The deck is covered with straw and divided into pens, with makeshift bamboo fences. To keep the animals calm, they are constantly fed. Meanwhile, handlers are stationed around the perimeter to ensure that none of the buffaloes fall overboard. This is an unusual high-speed vessel that moves with the help of hydrofoils. As a result, its hull appears to fly above the water's surface, leaving water sprays behind, much like a jet ski. Such hydrofoil vessels are usually smaller in size and don't have fully enclosed decks. It might seem like a massive ship is speeding across the water, but it's actually about 30 meters long. Sailing isn't exactly a safe activity. This man nearly found himself in the sea when his boat almost capsized. During the movement, the sailboat began to sharply tilt to one side, narrowly avoiding a full capsize. Water splashed onto the deck, soaking the sailor. He was greatly frightened when he nearly went overboard. What saved him was a safety net and the ropes he managed to grab onto. Do you enjoy active water sports? Let us know down in the comments. This port worker decided to film a video for his wife of a ship being launched into the water and accidentally captured an accident. At first, everything was going well and the bow gradually entered the water. Large metal cylinders are used for the launching of the ship to slide into the water without damaging the hull. However, as the ship was entering the water, it began to lean to the starboard side. Within seconds, it capsized. There were a few crew members on board who had to jump into the water or climb onto the ship's surface. It's unclear why this happened and who was to blame, but it's clearly not the fault of the workers who witnessed the accident. Just look at their smiles and joy. They began taking photos in front of the ship, clapping and laughing like children. Even in unpleasant moments, one can find positivity. A group of friends decided to go on a sailing trip, but their boat started to sink. The hull was completely submerged underwater. Such boats are made from materials that don't sink, so they were in no danger, except for getting their things and gear wet. But just look at how calm these guys are. As their boat began to turn into a floating swimming pool, they recorded videos and joked around. Maybe this isn't the first time it's happened to them. This incident occurred near Australia between the Japanese whaling ship Yushin Maru 3 and the Sea Shepherd Organization's ship, which is dedicated to protecting marine resources. Environmentalists try to confront and obstruct whalers, but sometimes it becomes extremely dangerous. The activist's ship was initially driven away by a water jet from a hydrant. However, that wasn't the end of it. The whaling ship made a sharp turn and rammed the activist's boat. The video clearly shows that this wasn't an accident or mishap, but a deliberate action. Just look at the damage the boat sustained. Its bow was completely destroyed by the impact. The whalers simply continued on their way without offering any assistance. On the sinking boat, several people were seriously injured by the collision. One activist had 2 broken ribs. Fortunately, the sinking ship was rescued by the crew of the Bob Barker, who were passing nearby. All the victims were saved. Sometimes unloading cargo from ships doesn't take place at a port using special equipment, but directly into the water. This large barge delivers timber to Canada, where it's used to make paper pulp, cellulose, and wood for furniture. Hundreds of tons of logs are loaded onto special ships that transport them to the required location. However, unloading all of this equipment is quite time-consuming. Moreover, they can be damaged during unloading and dumping logs onto the dock. If it's necessary to keep them as intact as possible, this method of dumping them into the water is used. The barge has a special tilting mechanism. At first, it might seem like something is going wrong and the ship is sinking, but in reality, this is a regular unloading process. It's slow enough to be done carefully and safely. When the logs are dropped, the barge is moved to the other side by the current. Several boats monitor this process. Sometimes, to prevent the logs from drifting too far due to the current, a special restraining cable is stretched across the water. If a few logs don't fall into the water, workers have to go out on a deck to manually drop them. This is quite dangerous work, so everything is done according to instructions and under the supervision of colleagues who can assist if needed. Once the logs are in the water, the current carries them to receiving points, where they are retrieved from the water and sent for processing. A fishing vessel started to flood due to turbulent waves. The crew members went up to the deck to try and do something, but the elements took over. The rough waves submerged part of the deck, flooding the hold and causing the ship to gradually sink. This situation is quite dangerous for the crew members standing below. The waves could knock them off their feet and throw them overboard, so they held onto a taut rope. The crew donned life jackets and began calling for help from the nearby vessels, as at any moment the boat's weight could become critical, causing it to sink. Fortunately, that didn't happen, although the ship was significantly submerged. Just look at how deeply it was immersed. The midsection of the hull was completely underwater. Another ship came to their aid, and all 7 fishermen and crew members were evacuated to safety. The cargo ship Estagante, carrying 64 cars from Japan, encountered a severe storm that seriously damaged both the ship and its cargo. The ship's deck was covered with a thick layer of ice due to low temperatures, making it difficult to secure the cargo. By the end of the storm, only 12 cars remained, but calling them intact would be an overstatement. All of these cars sustained significant damage, broken bumpers, shattered glass, and large dents on their bodies. It looked as if they had all been in a massive car accident. Although the storm had ended, the sea remained rough. The ship was still being rocked and the cars were sliding across the icy deck, constantly crashing into each other. A video taken by the crew captured the moment that one car fell and crashed into another, causing it to slide off the deck and disappear into the sea foam. This video became a vivid illustration of how merciless the sea can be to cargo. The crew could do nothing but watch this merciless spectacle, documenting the events on camera. The car owners who had signed documents allowing deck transportation at their own risk received an unpleasant surprise. Their cars, which they had expected to receive in pristine condition, ended up battered or sunk on the bottom of the ocean floor. Water accidents are quite common. They often come as a surprise. What could possibly go wrong on a calm lake in beautiful weather? That's what this man thought as he was fishing from a boat in the middle of the water. Instead of catching a fish, he snagged some seaweed. But that wasn't his biggest misfortune of the day. He noticed a jet ski speeding towards him. The fisherman froze for a few seconds in surprise. The jet ski driver only attempted to turn away at the last moment to avoid the collision. However, the crash was inevitable. Both ended up in the water and their vessels were damaged. Do you enjoy fishing? Why don't you share your thoughts down in the comments below? A dangerous activity was devised for tourists in French Polynesia where surfing is popular. Hundreds of tourists and athletes visit this place, as it is ideal for surfing due to its waves. In boats, tourists can go out to sea to watch the large waves and experience them firsthand. It's an unforgettable experience, but it is quite dangerous, as there are risks that the boat could capsize or a wave could throw tourists overboard. The moment when the wave hits this boat, most people don't even hold onto the handrails, filming it on their phones instead. It's interesting to think about how many phones have ended up at the bottom of the sea after such tourist adventures. Two yachts collided in the Red Sea. There were many tourists on board. When the people on the deck realized an accident was about to happen, they began to run as far away as possible. One of the yachts suffered severe damage and was left with a broken upper deck, where several dozen vacationers had been sitting. Fortunately, no one was seriously injured. The incident resulted in damage to the vessels, some scared passengers, and a few bruises. This is why you need to be cautious not only on the roads, but also in the open ocean. This couple decided to take photos and shoot a nice video during their vacation, but things didn't go as planned. A wave nearly threw them overboard. This ship experienced an engine failure, forcing it to make an emergency stop at a port. The video was shot by eyewitnesses in 2005 in Canada. Since the engine wasn't working, the crew couldn't stop the ship quickly. It continued moving and rammed into several boats docked in the bay. This accident caused millions of dollars in damage. Several boats sank and had to be recovered from the bottom. But the most tragic part is that 2 people died as a result of this incident, and several others were injured. During a flood caused by a typhoon in the Philippines, several boats and barges collided and crashed into the supports of a bridge. They got stuck and turned the bridge into a real dam. The water level began to rise and the ships started to flood. Equipment and belongings that were on board fell into the water. At the time, there were crew members on the vessel. Some of them ended up in the water. Miraculously, the bridge supports withstood the load and did not collapse. However, this flood caused significant damage and human casualties. Orcas are not only majestic and beautiful marine creatures, but also very dangerous for sailors. Fishermen witnessed an orca leaping out of the water and hitting one of the boats. A man fell overboard, and the boat capsized. This man decided to take a ride in a motorboat on a body of water. He gained high speed and lost maneuverability, causing the boat to crash into a pier near the shore. As a result, the boat was smashed and the driver was injured. In this situation, airbags or a seatbelt could have reduced the injuries. Notice how the bow of the motorboat splits into 2 parts. Repairing the boat after such damage would be more expensive and difficult than buying a new one. This barge crashed into a ship at high speed. Despite its small size, the barge caused significant damage. The ship's hull was punctured, forcing it to stop its voyage and head to the dock for repairs. This is not your typical emergency medical vessel launch. It was flipped upside down before being released from the restraints. Note that there is a crew member inside at the time. It might seem like an extraordinary adventure for him, but in reality, it's just another workday. At one point, the ship is released and lands on the water. The man inside smiles and signals that everything is fine. In 2018, a serious incident in the Bosphorus in Istanbul attracted the attention of not only local residents, but also numerous tourists. The 225-meter-long Vita Spirit was headed to port when its rudder suddenly jammed. This technical malfunction led to the loss of control over the ship. The vessel uncontrollably passed under the Bosphorus Bridge and crashed into a historic mansion on the shore, almost completely destroying it. The mansion was an architectural monument built in the 19th century. It had stood on the shore for many years and was a vivid example of Ottoman architecture. This building was a popular spot for tourists and locals alike. At the time of the accident, many tourists nearby witnessed the event and recorded their visit on cameras. Fortunately, no one was injured, although there were people inside the mansion. The walls couldn't withstand the powerful impact of the ship, and the building, which had survived for centuries, was destroyed in an instant. The damage was so severe that restoring the mansion became nearly impossible. Not far from the accident site, several dozen people were relaxing in a cafe on the shore. When they noticed the massive ship uncontrollably heading toward them, they panicked and began to flee the building. People ran outside, leaving their belongings behind with only one thought in mind: to save themselves. Some stayed inside, recording the incredible moment when the ship crashed into the shore. The Vita Spirit cargo ship was built in 2001 and had a good reputation, but this incident highlighted the importance of the careful monitoring of the technical condition of vessels. The Andrea fishing vessel had finished its catch and was returning to a port in the Netherlands. The skipper and the rest of the crew were resting below the deck, while the ship was being steered by a single sailor. Coming towards them was the Alexander von Humboldt ship, which had 59 people on board. The two vessels were on a collision course, and the crew members of the Alexander von Humboldt noticed the danger. They began signaling the fishing boat to warn the impending catastrophe, using radio communications and continuous horn signals. However, the Andrea did not respond appropriately. Panic began to rise on the Alexander von Humboldt. The crew of the fishing vessel only started to change course and reduce speed when they were mere meters away from the other ship. They nearly avoided a collision, but the two ships still made contact. The Andrea sustained only minor scratches, while the Alexander von Humboldt suffered damage to its deck. The railing was destroyed, and the ship required repairs. Despite the relatively minor damage, the incident caused significant stress for all involved. The crew member of the fishing vessel who failed to make timely action to prevent the collision was found responsible for the incident. He had to pay over £8,000 for the damages. During a powerful storm, a Spanish cargo ship was thrown onto a rocky shore near the coast of the Basque country close to France. The storm's force was so great that the waves towered over the massive ship. Observe how the enormous waves tossed the vessel around like a toy. At the time, crew members were on board, and one can only imagine what they felt as their ship crashed and their lives were put in danger. A helicopter was immediately dispatched to rescue the 12 crew members. The rescue operation was incredibly difficult and dangerous because the ship kept moving and crashing against the rocks. The situation was further complicated by strong winds, which made the operation even more perilous. Notice the rescuer on the cable, who was repeatedly lifted and lowered, unable to approach the ship due to its unpredictable movements. Despite all the difficulties, all the sailors were saved and brought to safety. However, the situation on the ship deteriorated rapidly. At one point, its hull could no longer withstand the stress and broke in half. Flooding was prevented by sturdy bulkheads that slowed the water's entry into the hold. However, it was impossible to save the ship. It had sustained critical damage. Unfortunately, this giant ship has now turned into a pile of scrap metal, abandoned on the shore. This is a planned sinking of the cargo ship Stellar Banner, which ran aground and sustained hull damage. Fortunately, none of the crew members were harmed in the incident. Despite all efforts, the ship could not be saved. The cargo and fuel were removed to avoid any environmental disaster, and it was decided to sink the ship nearby, as towing it to the nearest port was impossible due to significant damage. This operation was carefully planned and prepped. Numerous environmental organizations and the Brazilian Navy were involved. The preparation took almost 3 months. The sinking itself turned out to be a real spectacle. The ship gradually submerged in the water, and the process, which started with the bow tilting downward, seemed controllable and predictable. However, when the bow began to go under, air under great pressure escaped from the hold, creating the impression of a massive explosion. Water quickly filled the forward compartments, causing the stern to lift. The ship almost stood upright and then sank rapidly. The entire process took only a few seconds. The spray of water and air bursting to the surface resembled a volcanic eruption. The military observers were impressed by how dynamic the event was. After the sinking, special tugs and ships monitored the area for oil spills, carefully ensuring that no parts of the ship or fuel surfaced. In October 2018, a serious accident in the port of Barcelona attracted the attention from both locals and international media. The passenger liner Roro collided with a port crane, causing significant destruction. The incident occurred due to the loss of control over the vessel, which was unable to stop in time. A slight nudge from the massive liner was enough to knock the crane off its position. At the time of the collision, workers were present on the pier. Seeing the uncontrolled vessel approaching, they fled, trying to escape the danger. Thanks to quick reflexes and some luck, none of the workers were injured. The liner sustained only minor dents on its bow. However, the crane could not withstand the impact and collapsed, crashing to the ground with great force. The fall of the crane caused an explosion and ignited fuel and flammable material stored nearby. The fire quickly spread. Rescue services and crew members were immediately called to the scene. The collapse and fire destroyed other equipment on the pier and several dozen containers with goods waiting to be shipped. Which video has impressed you the most? Let us know down in the comment section. If you enjoyed this video, give it a like and support us. We'll be back with another set of exciting videos soon. Stay tuned and see you next time.